Greeting you all. Today is the part 5 of my talk about a heroic solution for all the misery of Islam. It is that you should not follow the unloving leadership of the Prophet of Islam. This is because his leadership and prophecy are all self-spoiling and can neither benefit nor offer service to society or the world. A true messenger of God is humble and does not come to lock people's mouths so that no one can have an opinion against him. If you criticize the Prophet of Islam in Islamic countries, you will either have to be tortured or killed on the spot. If you criticize him, all your family members, relatives, and friends will be terrified that your criticism will endanger them as well. This is the greatest misery that the Prophet of Islam has left for Islamic societies because of his self-centered leadership, the leadership that the Quran teaches. In the first 13 years of his mission, the Prophet of Islam voiced all the words of his ego with hypocrisy and deceitfulness. And in the last 10 years of his life, he fed the people by the force of the sword, all in the name of the word of God. He has introduced God in the Quran as if God exists to serve him rather than he existing to serve God. For his mistakes, instead of apologizing to people, he reveals verses to legitimize these very mistakes. If he desires someone else's wife, he simply legitimizes that. He breaks his oath with his wives and then says that God allowed him to do so. He breaks his agreement with others and then says that they are not Muslims and do not know what the true agreement is. So he expects others to keep their promises with him, but he himself breaks promises whenever he wishes. Such leadership or prophecy closes the door for true unity, harmony, and success everywhere, but opens the door for miseries to increasingly take over. This is the kind of leadership that the Prophet of Islam established in Medina, or Saudi Arabia, and aimed to export to the surrounding lands. After fleeing from Mecca to Medina, he took refuge in an Arab tribe who were famous for looting caravans, and accepted their invitation to become their prophet, so that Arab nation also, would have a prophet. And he aligned himself with them and even used his revelation to legitimize the looting of those who did not show interest in his prophecy. Logic tells us that anyone who who imposes himself on others does not know what love, justice, peace, and comfort are. Such a person cannot have a relationship with a loving and just God, nor can he have a genuine relationship with anyone, even his own spouse and children. This is the image the Quran shows of the Prophet of Islam. In my last 4 episodes that are related to the heroic solution to all the misery of Islam, I've started in them to reveal the verses of the Quran one by one, which are the signs of injustice and unkindness of the Prophet of Islam. He easily violates justice and love in relationship to his family and followers, and of course to all others. If you as a social human being do not make loving care the highest means of your life or mission, you are then an obstacle to harmony, mutual cooperation, progress, or success in society, even if millions of people surrender to you. But when you include all others in your loving care, the sphere of your love becomes far greater in proving that you are a follower of God and closer to His heart. This is actually the logical way for anyone who claims to be a messenger to prove that he is truly a messenger from the true God and able to imitate God. Since love is the most influential tool to create a long-lasting relationship with genuine responsibility, God chooses to serve the world through this love. It is for this reason that the gospel of Jesus Christ prioritizes unconditional love in relationship and calls upon people to follow the heart of God, whose sunshine and rain are for everyone, friends or foes alike. Why? Because of His surpassing love. The gospel of Jesus Christ says, if I have prophetic power and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, endures all things. The Prophet of Islam could not be truly a godly person because he was unloving, angry, hurtful, and further imposed himself on others, imposed his religion on others. According to the claim of the Prophet of Islam, Surah At-Tawbah, Surah 9 of the Quran, is the last and perfecting chapter for his mission on earth. In the time of this surah, he had reached the peak of his power, and there was no longer a need to deceive people and say that Allah was compassionate. For this reason, unlike in all other surahs, the Quran in this surah does not start with the phrase "in the name of the compassionate and forgiving Allah." From this surah, we learn that Allah had never been compassionate. He was introduced as compassionate in other surahs since the Prophet of Islam had not reached the peak of his power yet. Now, he had the full power to impose himself without a need for deceit or a superficial compassion. So this surah reveals that blatant viciousness is the true sign of perfect righteousness in Islam. It says in verse 123 that everybody must see that a righteous Muslim is harsh and terrorizing. This is the very example of how the Quran teaches righteous Muslims to terrorize their own families, neighborhoods, Christian and Jews, and all other non-Muslims. This chapter reveals the heart of leadership in Islam and why the Prophet of Islam wanted total blind obedience. It's a chapter of anarchy that causes fear and hatred in and among Muslim families and societies, and a chapter that sanctions totalitarian terrorism toward all non-Muslims, including non-Muslim relatives. This is what the Prophet of Islam meant by calling Islam the last and perfect religion. It is that perfect religion which has no compassion for both moderate Muslim and non-Muslims. This surah tells us that the world will be perfected with irrationality and terrorism. That is when the terrorist Muslim will dominate everywhere and deprive both their own Muslim families and societies and others of God-given freedom. It is this vicious spirit of the Quran that equipped the Prophet of Islam and thereby left the totalitarian leadership model that has been the cause of all misery wherever Islam rules. Dear Muslims, please leave Islam, forsake the Quran and the Prophet of Islam, and give your heart to Jesus. If you thirst to live in peace with others and desire to prosper in every way of life. Leave Islam behind. Islam is the enemy of harmony and success. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I wish you the best, and I pray the true God's peace and abundant comfort be with you all. God bless.